This is near the end of my very first flight with the Eachine Nano LR3, 3-inch long range, LR being long range. And I oftentimes will do this with quads. I'll just go out and fly them around to see what it's like. And because this is long range, I don't know exactly what the flight characteristics are, and I don't know how long it will fly. And that's essentially what I'm doing at this point. I'm just sitting in the back, I'm relaxing, and I'm just trying to fly it around to see how long it will fly, how's it respond when the battery voltage gets low. I wanted to show you this because it does show that the quad does fly when the voltage gets down to 6 volts. We're using two 18650 batteries. And then we can move forward to show you the flight time, which probably is in either the title or the thumbnail. Without my OSD set up as it normally is, I've taken this screenshot of the end of our flight, and you can see there the top stat line, the total arm time, that's our flight time, 21 minutes and 54 seconds. I actually took off after this and flew it another 5 or 10 seconds. I wanted to show you this to give you some idea of the flight time that you can expect using the batteries I have in a wind protected area like my backyard. Hello everyone, today we're taking a look at the Eachine Nano LR3. It's a 3-inch, 2-cell powered. Got an 18650 that goes to both in the top and the bottom. If you're not familiar, 18650 cells look like these. This is one that I got from Pyrodrone. You can tell because Pyrodrone puts these little labels on here. And yes, this has the potential that you can fly for 21 plus minutes. But I think there's some caveats to that. If you're used to what we commonly refer to as camera drones, like a Mavic or a Phantom, this is not that. This does not hold in place. That's not how the flight controller software works. It's really not what the GPS is meant for. The GPS is really for that last-ditch effort. You've lost control, you've lost video, and you're going to try to get the quad back. GPS rescue mode. That's what it's for. It's not going to hover in place. This one we need to actively fly. Of course, it's got angle mode, it's got horizon mode, things of that nature on it. But let's dive into the specs. We could talk about all the specifics of flying something like this during some of the flight time. But I won't be showing the entire flight because, well, even my long range flight, it doesn't go 20 minutes. Because I'm flying it with the Insta360 Go 2, and also, of course, have a mount that I had to use to put those things together, and I had a fair bit of wind. But you'll see what happens here in a little bit. The flight controller is an F411 that is only a 5 amp ESC on there. Our FPV camera is a Caddx Ant. Our motors are Eachine branded 1303.5 4500 kV motors. And the props that it comes with are the Gemfan 3016 3-inch tri-blade props. VTX is buried down there. You can kind of see it a little bit. It's the Eachine Nano V2, which is power switchable up to 400 milliwatts. The GPS is the M80 GPS. Mine is the Crossfire edition, which is really good for long range. And it flies with two 18650 lithium-ion batteries. One on the top and one on the bottom. Be careful about how you insert the batteries. There's definitely a plus and a minus, and they rotate on the bottom. On the top, your positive side is up here, but on the bottom, your positive side's down here. I also recommend using something other than the included rubber bands to ensure that your batteries stay in, and you'll see why in a little bit. It does come with an extra set of props and 2 extra screws. It comes with a nut and a bolt to mount your mount for your external HD camera right here to the front. They recommend Eachine batteries on the product page, but you might want to try these if you like my results. It comes with a prop rotation card. It comes with a warning about how to insert your batteries. It comes with essentially a full coloring wire map and a big sheet of stickers. Without batteries or HD camera, it weighs 102.7 grams. If we add the batteries I flew it on, it weighs 196.3 grams. If we add the Insta360 Go 2 as well as my 3D printed mount, we get 132.5 grams. If we add an actual battery strap, which I recommend, we get 235 grams all up flying weight. The arms are the only part of this quad that are carbon fiber, and they're 2.5 millimeters thick and look about 5.5 millimeters wide. The rear arm is this wishbone, and it goes all the way through, and then we've got a straight through arm again all the way through. The body is all plastic or molded plastic. The only carbon fiber, like I said, is the arms. And the landing feet down here are 3D printed. All right, we're starting off with me out at the field at the beginning of this flight. You actually see our on time there is at the lower right. We're just over 2 minutes and 15 seconds. But I wanted to show you this because you can see the satellite count, and now we have 8 satellites at just about 2 minutes and 20 seconds. Of course, your satellite count and how quickly you get those is going to vary depending upon your location. and the weather and maybe other things that I just don't understand about satellites and GPS. So now we've switched over to the Insta360 Go 2 view. Of course, this is not what you see in the goggles, not even close. This is a recording that you have to take home and plug into your computer and pull it off of there. And the audio that you're hearing, I'm probably going to lower the volume on the audio. It is also from the Insta360 Go 2. Shortly, we'll take a look at the FPV view, the actual view that you see in the goggles, at least the DVR representation of what you see in the goggles. I am not flying with a specialized patch. I am just using my traditional circular polarized antennas. There's a lot of long-range knowledge that I just don't have. There are people who are much more experienced to fly at much further range, and in this video, you're only going to see me go a couple of 100 meters out. Wesley Vardy, he does some extreme long range testing. If you're really interested in long range and learning what you can about it and how to do it well and safely so you can get your quad back, I would highly encourage you to visit Wesley's channel, and I'll link it down in the video description. There's a host of other people that do long range, but Wesley's the one I know that does it regularly, so you'll find a number of videos of him flying at range and can maybe catch little tips and tricks that he has learned over his years of experience. Of course, when you're flying at range, it poses a different risk, and some of that risk is exciting to some people. Of course, in this case at least, it's slow, cruisy, exploratory flight. And that's fine. Some people like that. It's not really my forte. It's not what I do. Of course, what I like to do is to rip around my backyard. This takes a little bit more planning and effort. If those of you that follow the channel know that the last time I was out here in this area, I had a sporty storm blow in on me and actually had to make a mad dash for the car after I had gotten done with my flight and had to quickly pack up. Hopefully this is kind of a proof of concept that if you have an HD camera, that it'll fly like this, and it's also just kind of showing you that I have that extra weight of the camera, the mount, and the screw and the nut for the mount all on this. So it shows you again the difference in fly time when you add that weight to this quad, because just cruising it around in my backyard, yeah, I got almost 22 minutes. And in this flight, we'll see a little bit of a different outcome. Of course, Express LRS is an option, but this does not come bind and fly with Express LRS. You would need to purchase the plug and fly or the plug and play, and then add an Express LRS receiver after the fact. And in this case, I would not recommend the ceramic antenna. It would probably be fine, but I think just because I don't have enough experience flying the ceramic antenna or the plastic antenna as it actually is, the little cube antenna on, say, the EP2 or the other really small receivers for Express LRS, I haven't tested those at range, so I couldn't necessarily tell you what you would actually get. So I don't recommend it just because I don't have that experience. There was a moment where I actually heard some things rustling around in the weeds and decided to pop off the goggles so I could see what it was. I have a healthy fear of snakes, so I wanted to make sure it wasn't my favorite slimy friend. I know some people like snakes. I just don't like them. So I popped off the goggles. You saw the quad drop there a little bit. Let's move forward to take a look at our FPV view and my audio from the recording. I do have my ground camera out, or my pilot camera out. It will fall off eventually because it only records 10 minutes at a time, and this flight is going to be well over that. Okay, so this is the view that you see in the goggles, or at least the DVR representation. You can also see all the OSD information. You can see my throttle position is in the top left. You can see that I'm running race band 8 at 400 milliwatts. You can see our altitude from our takeoff position. We've got our home arrow on the right there, just below our altitude. We have our distance away from home, a little over 200 meters at this point, or I guess it's actually decreasing because I'm coming back. And then we've got our number of satellites. Now, our number of satellites, I think in this flight itself, I saw go up to 15, and that's actually the most I can recall getting on any of the GPS modules that I've tried in this location or at my house. Down in the lower left, we've got our top number, which is the voltage per cell, and then we've got the voltage overall below that. We've also got on the lower right, we've got our fly time, so that's the amount of time from our arm to our disarm. And then we've got our on time, which is 12 minutes. I already showed you that you get satellites, at least in this particular location on this particular day, in about 2 minutes and 20 seconds. Betaflight does stop you as far as how this one is set up from arming before you have 8 satellites. Of course, you can go into Betaflight and disable that. The 8 satellites should give you a pretty good opportunity for the GPS rescue to return, not necessarily to land in the exact same spot, but to at least bring it back to where maybe you gain control link or you gain your video again and you can take manual control again and not lose a quad. That's really the purpose of GPS rescue. It's not GPS in the traditional sense of camera drones. So if you're familiar with camera drones, Mavics, Phantoms, other things like that, that's not what the GPS on these type of quads are there for. We're only about 9.5 minutes into our flight, and my background there is of the surroundings. You can see how tall the weeds are. I actually was on this hill just today at lunchtime, and a crew came in and cleaned it all up. Those weeds are all gone. I was stunned by that. I had no idea. I had never seen a crew in my 13 years of living in this area out there mowing that stuff down. There was a person with a gas trimmer down by the tree line, by the creek, and cleaning up. There's a little bench you can sit on down there to kind of watch the water. There was a person on a bobcat that had like a implement on the front to mow, the brush down. And then down at the end of the trail, there was a truck with trailer, and that's apparently where they parked and started their maintenance process. So I was really surprised by that, but it was nice to see that is, it's got people that are maintaining it. I don't know if it's a private contractor of some sort. It's not the city or the county, because the truck they had a construction company on the side of it. But at any point, we're down to 3.3 volts per cell, and this flight's going to go on for a while. So let's forward on to the end that's a little bit more interesting. So you've already seen the clip that I showed you at my house with a real slow cruisy flight that I got almost 22 minutes. And here we are at 15 minutes and we're losing voltage, and we're going to find something interesting here in just a moment. I kept it in close because it is getting low on voltage, and I have a bit of wind out there, so I don't know exactly how it's going to respond. It's one of the things of me not being an experienced long ranger, that maybe it's a good practice, maybe not, but I don't want to lose the quad, or I don't want to have to spend hours out finding it. And now we see I've increased throttle, but I'm still descending, and bloop, I've fallen down to the ground, and of course a battery popped out. Let's go back and take a look at that one more time. Here we are at about 15:15. And I'm going to get down here, and I'm going to see that I can kind of feel it as the voltage gets lower over the course of the batteries, that it requires more and more throttle. And you can see I'm up to 91, and it's still descending, and that's when I'm just going into the mode where I'm going to disarm so that I don't kill the quad. And here we are again, back at my house, back on the patio. I've already been flying this thing for well over 20 minutes. This was the clip I started with. Just want to reinforce this. I would change the low battery voltage and the minimum battery voltage up by at least 0.2 points, just to be safe. And I was able to bring it in and give it a nice soft landing in this particular case. I chose those clips kind of enlighten anyone who might be, like myself, a little bit innocent to long range and the risks and getting familiar and safe practices, even though I'm not all that well versed in what are the best practices for flying at range. Some people fly quads just like this, or wings, and they go out kilometers. Wesley Vardy has been out at least 33 kilometers that I'm aware of. Just mind-boggling. But if you've got this and you're wanting to fly at range, there's nothing wrong with how it flies, in my opinion. Yes, if you have wind like I have, it will blow it around a little bit. It seems as though it doesn't have quite the voltage and power that it needs to make small, steady corrections with the motors and these 3-inch tri-bladed props in order to keep us on a straight line. It kind of tracks with kind of a wobble to it a little bit, and hopefully I displayed enough video to where you did see that. So if you have wind in your area like I have, which was about 14 to 15 miles an hour as far as the weather data goes, but it might have been a little bit more than that, wind can come and go during the course of the day. But if you have that, you'll at least know what to expect with this. Again, I would recommend using an actual battery strap to go all the way around to make sure when you have a relatively soft landing or unintended landing like I had, that your batteries don't come popping out, because they really don't stay in there very well. And yes, I had both rubber bands wrapped around those batteries, and they popped out. Actually, both ends popped out. I had one pop out from the top and one pop out from the bottom. So there's nothing wrong with that, but I think using a rubber band isn't a good practice, and we need to actually use a battery strap. You may even want to use two. You may want to use one behind the flight controller and one in front of the flight controller. It's going to add some weight, probably shorten your flight time a little bit, but it'll keep the batteries in if you do have one of those unintended landing. There's not a whole lot to discuss about this. You know, I did have a crash, but these really aren't made to crash. My crash wasn't from very high up. You know, it was actually trying to spin the motors and go up because I was increasing throttle, but it wasn't able to. Lithium ion batteries don't exert a lot of voltage into our system in order to be able to make it respond very quickly. So if you're wanting to do flips, you're wanting to do rolls, you're wanting to fly aggressively, you're wanting to go fast, these aren't the quads you're going to want to look for. These are slow, steady, exploratory cruisers. I feel like I'm kind of beating you over the head with that, and I apologize if it comes off that way. It's just we always have new people coming to the channel, coming into the hobby, and I wouldn't want anybody to get confused about what they're getting into. Especially if they come to this channel and they're used to me flying much, much faster, or if that clip in the backyard possibly showed it flying faster than it actually is. Maybe the perception that it's flying real fast. Maybe. But this comes in a number of different receiver types. I think if you're wanting to fly it, you know, actually out a little bit, one of the limiting factor is going to be the 400 milliwatt VTX. I think most of the people who are doing FPV far out are probably using a higher power VTX, probably closer to 1 watt, at least 800 milliwatts. Using a patch antenna on your goggles is also a good idea to kind of direct the focus of the high gain antenna in the direction that you're going to be. I didn't have that. I wanted to show you the video reception in that space though. I also had greenery that was kind of on both sides of me. You know, it's a ways away from me, but it's taller than I am up on that hill, the trees, the evergreens. So I had a little bit of an obstacle in there as well. Depending upon the receiver that you get with the Crossfire version, which is kind of surprising they can get Crossfire, because I've heard from many people who are actually starting to plan their fleet to go with Express LRS because they're having a hard time finding Crossfire receivers. They have apparently Crossfire receivers. This version comes in at a little over $200. Of course, you can buy it without a receiver, add your own, maybe Express LRS, or they have a couple other different receiver options. You do need to buy batteries separately, so keep that in mind. And on Banggood's product page, this is an Eachine product, which is exclusively sold by Banggood. They do link the Eachine batteries, which you can get. If you're familiar with Pyrodrone here in the US out of California, these are the batteries that I bought from them and that I flew every flight on with this particular quad. Of course, you could look other sources for batteries that just look like this. These are labels that are put on after the fact. Let me see if I can get these turned so you can see some of the finer print. I know it's probably not coming through camera very well, but it's got some print there on the side. These are flat. No buttons on these batteries, but these seem to work pretty good. You know, I got 22 minutes in the backyard, got a little over 15 with the Insta360 Go 2 out in the field. So they might be batteries you want to investigate as well. Hopefully I've covered everything that you might want to know, but if I haven't, please let me know in the comments section below. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.